Hello, everyone. This is another Freedom to Feel conversation, and my guest today is Tammi Van Hollander. She is the founder of Mainline Play Therapy, an author, a speaker, trainer, a clinical social worker, and registered play therapy supervisor with over 25 years of experience. I mean, she has done amazing work. I'm just reading here her bio, but yeah, it's beautiful. She has written 2 books, more than that, but I will mention 2. The Bibliotherapy Toolbox, 100 plus creative and playful story-based interventions to help kids create safety, overcome challenges, and build resiliency. She also wrote Casey's Greatness Wings, teaching mindfulness, connection, and courage to children. I love that. When I saw the word courage, for some reason, really, I highlighted and I put hearts around it. It's almost like it was speaking to me in a way. So talk to me about your books. That's usually not my first question, but for some reason, you showed me the cover, the cover of the books too. They're beautiful. So what was the intention? What inspired you to write all these books, Tammi?
Well, the book Casey's Greatness Wings that I have right over here, I was trained with a woman named Dr. Janet Courtney, who is trained in first playing kinesthetic storytelling. And so much of my work comes from an attachment-based lens. And how are we building connections with our children? And so when I got trained in this and working with Janet and creating this kinesthetic book, the book is actually done on the child's back. So once we do one book on a back, parents are like, wow, we could be doing so many other books on the back. And when we are able to give this loving and nurturing touch with one another, it creates that joy and love hormone, that oxytocin. So which is so beautiful is if we're both touching each other, the oxytocin together evens out. But if we have negative touch, right, it's that stress hormone cortisol. And so many kids, as well as adults who've had inappropriate touch, they may just get a tap on their shoulder, but they are reacting, they're having a trauma response. So how are we teaching the importance of this loving and nurturing touch to create safety within the child's nervous system, within the parent's nervous system? So that's how that book came about. And being a child play therapist, I love to use bibliotherapy. And for many years, people have been using books for therapy and incorporating books and really using it as a psychoeducational model. That, okay, we have a book on anxiety, there's a book on divorce. Let me read it to you, and this is how we're going to learn. And what I really wanted to create with the Bibliotherapy Toolbox is I have about 60 different therapists from all over the world. And these are books that all create that beautiful emotional safety and attachment work. So you can look for a book on divorce, on gender identity, on bullying, on trauma, on grief, any of these things. And then it's a list of books, and then it's different play-based interventions that bring about connection and healing and mindfulness. Because for children, their language is play, and the toys are their words. So it's so important to be able to help parents speak this important language of the child's energy, of their play, and that connectivity, because children borrow their parents' nervous systems. And if the parents' nervous systems are chaotic then so is the child. And easier said than done for parents in the world that we live in. But as parents and as adults, we have a direct relationship and effect on our children, and how our nervous systems can impact our children's nervous systems.
Wow, that's so important. You said so much there, and I have too many questions here. But before I continue with my questions, the ones that came to me and the ones that I prepared. Why did you become a therapist, and specifically working with children? Did that happen one moment in time, or how did this happen, Tammi?
I knew I always wanted to work with children. It was always my passion. I worked with early childhood. My early trauma, which I actually talk about in my TEDx talk, which got me into Sandtray, and maybe we'll talk about that. Yes. But I am some will label it a womb twin survivor. So I was a twin, and my twin had died at birth. And I had such a mission to work with babies. And I wanted to work with babies with AIDS. I wanted to work with these little babies. And then I got more into early childhood. And I then took my first Sandtray training at the Family and Play Therapy Center. And I was like, wow, like, I need this. I want to do play therapy. And all of a sudden, just everything came together. I can often be a dysregulated person. And whether I am in the Sandtray with my clients, whether I am at play with my clients, it is one of the few times where my nervous system is quieted. It is my mindfulness moment of being there and being a part of the child's play and holding their stories. And so I think that's really how it came about. And it just kind of grew. I became really a bit of a passion junkie of learning more and more and being able to train others in this as well.
Yeah, it's a beautiful work, though, what you're doing. It's so beautiful. If we can teach children to heal themselves, to know themselves, to become aware of their environment, then that's it. We'll create the reality that we are looking for, right? A more peaceful, shared reality. So that's such an important work. Now that you mentioned, I had not heard about Sandtray, so I'd love, and I know a lot of people don't know about it. So what is it? How it works, Tammi?
Yeah, and that's really one of my missions, because Sandtray has changed my life. I do my own Sandtrays all the time. And so there's different types of theoretical orientations. There's Sandtray and there's Sandplay, which is a Jungian analysis. But basically, within the sand, there's many different toys. They could be little objects, anything you could imagine, and different toys. And that we have our conscious mind and our unconscious mind. And by literally just selecting these different images and placing them in the sand, the unconscious and conscious mind begin to make sense. There's different parts of us within the Sandtray, whether they're past parts, all the different parts of self, and we can begin to navigate it. So if there are a lot of things going on in the mind, there'll often be many miniatures in the Sandtray. And if there are only a few things going on in the mind, maybe depression and not many resources, the trays may look very empty. And through a process of Sandtrays, there are different stories that are created, whether they are imaginary stories that create that safe psychological distance from the problems, or if you were to come in and pick different images, you would just sit with them and you would feel them in your body. And you would feel the sand, and the sand would be the regulator. And then the pieces would begin to speak to you. They would have a message, and the pieces in the Sandtray have a message to one another, and you may have a message for them. And what happens to the brain, it's this full body experience, and the limbic system of our brain is being triggered. So once you create these Sandtrays, you can trap things, you can move them, you can compartmentalize them, and you begin to bring order to this chaos physically, rather than just being stuck in our head. And it is, these miniatures begin to talk to you and have different messages throughout. Once you've created it, throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout a lifetime, they begin to be alive in your mind, giving you these messages and being part of your inner dialogue. And it's just, it's truly beautiful. And when we have trauma, and when we have events when we've heard it many times, there are no words, right? There are no words. We hold trauma in our body. And if we hold trauma in our body, these images can begin to create that healing when the words are not quite there yet.
Wow, I never thought it that way. That's true. That's so true. Sometimes we say, oh, I have no words to express this. So the body will keep the score, like this book.
Absolutely. Bessel van der Kolk, who I talk about in the TEDx talk, we are holding it in our bodies, and that we work so hard on this idea of telling the trauma story, or for children to tell their trauma story. And it's really about them being able to play out however they need to play out. We may never get that whole story, but for a parent to be witness, if there was a trauma that the parent was not there for, and then could hold safe spaces for that child, that's what's so important. We could recreate and have the parent be there and hold that. And that's what makes it so beautiful and so sacred. When kids have trauma and when adults have trauma, there's cues of danger everywhere. And so trying to work to create safe spaces, we first have to try to create those safe spaces within their body, within their whole little nervous system, before even getting to any other levels of healing. And that may be done through a game of catch. It could be done through hide and seek in the sand, through all different playful ways where we are getting their bodies regulated. So then they feel safe in relationship, and then they could do that higher level of thinking. Conscious discipline will, they use basically this idea of this bottom-up approach that first, and I received this from Paris Goodyear Brown, one of my colleagues, is first we start with, am I safe? And then we move up to, am I loved? Right? And then the next part would be is, well, what can I learn from this? And that is that piece we're regulating, and then we're in a relationship, and then we can reason and do that higher level of thinking.
Right. So the Sandtray training, I know you do the training and you have a course too. Is that something that people can learn to do on their own, or do we always need a professional to guide, supervise? I would love to know, Tammi.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different. We started in 2020, the World Association for Sand Therapy Professionals, and so many sand therapists are licensed professionals who are doing this work, but there are many. So for those of you who may be like, oh, I'm really interested, in this work, you can Google Sandtray, sand play therapist, try to find a therapist near you. There's many play therapists who've been trained in Sandtray. You want to make sure that they are doing this work ethically. So I have adult clients who we will do this work even online, and we go through the process. They either will have the Sandtrays at home, and I help them through this process over a series of trays. And also, although it's not exactly the same as sand, there are different virtual sand trays. So Jessica Stone has a virtual sand tray app, and Karen Freed has a free online sand tray. So we can be sharing the screen and be creating these sand tray stories, actually even virtually, and doing this work. So there's a lot of different ways that it could be done, and it's really within the expressive therapies. So almost this idea, when we look at art therapy, you're doing art and we're not even quite sure what we're creating, and then we create it, and all of a sudden it has all this meaning. And that's the same as when we're looking at Sandtray. We have no idea what we're picking. There's often not even a prompt. I'll say, just let your fingers do the walking, and then the story comes about. But it's first the creativity and then the story that comes about later that can bring that left brain online.
Right. So that shows the healing power of expressive therapy. And that's the title of this episode. I mean, it had to be. How healing that is. Because yes, I have noticed throughout my healing experience too, that the body is communicating, and I just kind of watch intellectually. I'm watching what the body is doing. That's fascinating how it's very good at telling us what it needs, but oftentimes we are not listening. So in this case, with you, it's parents listening. So always being attentive to children. That's just such a beautiful work. When I don't have children, I'm trying to imagine here how wonderful it is to just follow, give them guidance rather than telling them what to do and, all giving them the steps to follow.
Yeah. And I think a part, that's really important of this piece is, yes, parents have to be incredibly self-aware of what's going on in their own bodies, because if there's a hard day, many times there's different triggers, and kids may get yelled at for something that's not really about them. It's something else that's going on. And it's also really important to recognize that every single behavior a child has, there's a reason for it. And so I never believe that children are manipulative, that they are doing it just to do it. If a parent is feeling, they're so needy. My kids are so needy. And I say all the time, it's not about attention. They're not attention seeking. It's about connection. Your child is losing connection in some way, and we need to look at that. We need to look at kids with vulnerable nervous systems. What their body's doing internally, whatever is going on internally, is what's happening with their behaviors externally. But they're getting in trouble, and we say no, but they don't have the tools of what else to do. They don't know how to regulate their little bodies. And so parents need to help that, and parents need to help that with, there's so many wonderful, the attachment community within now parenting and the world now are finally getting it. They're finally recognizing that this old school ways of my way or no way, and giving kids behavioral plans and sticker charts are not working. And that we have to follow the child's lead, and we have to listen to what their behaviors are saying, because they're giving us very important messages that need to be heard, that we need to understand and translate to make sense of it, to create harmony within the home, because it's tough for everybody.
Yes. Wow. And there's something, the misconception about healing, one of them is that there's a moment in time that we become healed, completely healed, and then that's it. We reach the destination of healing. But in a way, there's no such a thing, right, Tammi? We are constantly healing, aren't we?
We are constantly healing, and we are constantly, for those who have experienced trauma, are stuck at the age where their trauma is. So we may have a 16-year-old who may play out something, and their tray may look like a 5 or 6-year-old. And so we are often stuck within this trauma loop. And in the world of play, as a play therapist, I have to be very careful. A child could be playing out their trauma without me knowing it, and becoming re-traumatized. And that's why it is so important to learn this, and to be knowledgeable, and to be educated in this work. But healing never goes away, right? It's a part of who we are. And just like this idea of conceptualizing the Sandtray, and the trauma may look really big, and the goal is not for the trauma to be out of the Sandtray. Maybe it's in the corner and it's not taking over the entire mind, but it's part of who we are, and it's part of our story. And that story, we begin, when we look at children, we can either embrace these kids' intensity, right? Or we can try to squash it and medicate them and do all these things. But their stories is important. All of our stories are important. The good, the bad, the ugly, because it gets us to where we are today.
Yes, 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 that's so true. And I was, when I was looking at your work, just reading everything, I was in my bedroom, and then I looked at my nightstand and I see 6 books. They're all Vedanta books. And then I was just thinking to myself, gosh, is it a product of my trauma, a childhood trauma? Because in a way, I've tried to so hard to connect, not just with my body, mind, in a healthy way, but with the world and other people. And I was just wondering, was that the way that I found to heal myself, and almost like a shortcut to healing in a way, just find the big picture of life and just kind of dance with it or rest with it. I was interesting. That came to mind. So I'm not sure if that's part of it, but it might be.
Yes, yes. Well, I think a part is Gabor Mate, who does a lot of trauma work. He
Oh, yeah.
really talks about that it's not so much the trauma that occurred, it's being alone with it. So when I hear your passion and talking
Yeah.
about Vedanta, that's you're no longer alone. You found this beauty, this connector to no longer sit alone with it
Yeah.
and to have that connection. And I think that's that piece is that we always need, we need connection. And when we sit alone with trauma and all of these pieces, where does it go?
Right.
It gets sucked in. It gets sucked in into mental illness, physical illness, right? Disease, all of these pieces because we're left alone with it. And how do we let it out and express it in a safe way and have those safe space holders there with us to be able to hold that and know that we're not alone.
Yes. So let's go back because I have so many notes here, Tammy, so much to talk to you about. You have done a lot. I want to mention that you have done, besides the books, you have created the Cases Greatness, Sticks and Cards. You teach virtual, as you mentioned, Sandtray classes. And then you have the TEDx Talk, which I'll have the link here too. And you have your Department of Wellness Department. They offers a range of holistic practices, including integrative sound healing, Reiki therapy, clinical herbalism, and holistic lifestyle counseling.
Yes, I have to give a shout out to my daughter for that one. My daughter was trained in India in sound bowl healing, and it's just, yeah, beautiful. Just all these different things that we are just doing this body type of work and those pieces. And within mainline play therapy, we have dance and movement therapists and art therapists. We just lost our music therapist. We need a new one. But so really taking all the expressive therapies into consideration when doing this work. And I travel all over, being able to keynote and just to teach this passion because I just feel so strongly about it.
Yeah, and it comes across that way. It's it really the energetic resonance is right here.
Yeah. And the parent coaching really, once the pandemic hit, I really started doing parent coaching like all over the world because I never realized how I never did virtual work before and realizing that, wow, I could be doing this. And during the pandemic was a time I really started doing YouTube videos, trying to really support therapists of how do we do this work online and creating it and really building community by just offering resources to others who really need it.
Yeah, that's what we need to expand the tools, right? The toolbox of healing. We need to know them. It's awareness. So yeah, you mentioned the YouTube. So it's titled Imagery Through Play. Is that correct, Tammy?
It was Imagery Through Play, or it may just be Tammi Van Hollander. It may have been changed just to Tammi Van Hollander YouTube channel. So
okay, just in case, I'll have the link there, a clickable link. Yeah. So the topics that we talked about different topics here, but I think you probably mentioned and touched on all of them, but maybe not. So the ones that caught my attention, the energy one. So attachment and energy, merging neuroscience and spirituality and parenting. This one caught my attention immediately because it goes back to spirituality, right? Going back to my Vedanta books. So talk to me about that. How does it work? How do you teach somehow? How can we teach children spirituality, especially when it comes to grief?
Yes. It's such a good question. And, part of the work is we're meeting kids where they are. We're meeting family where they are. So as therapists, we have to be very careful not to put our own belief on anybody else's. So even, the bibliotherapy toolbox, like of looking at books on grief, we always want to make sure that it's okay. Some books may talk about heaven. Heaven may not be believed in certain ones, but really within the selection of choice is so important, because we want, when clients come into our office, for them to know that all are welcome and that they see people that represent them, and they see culture, and they see different pieces. So in terms of even my Sandtray collection, anything I could find of whatever, of any type of cultural or spiritual pieces, I will bring into it. And it's amazing how so many of the kids will use it and not so much know what they are, but they'll use it for these type of healing purposes. So, when we are talking about grief and talking about grief with children, we really have to recognize and understand where they're also experiencing it in their own bodies. One of my favorite books, since I do bibliotherapy, is a book called The Invisible String by Patrice Harst. And this book is about these children, and this mom tells them about this invisible string, and the string is connected from one heart to another heart. So first it was separation anxiety, and whenever they're missing mom, they feel a pull on one heart, and they know mom is thinking about them. And does the invisible string go anywhere and everywhere? So one of the questions is, does it go to Uncle Brian in heaven? Even there. Does it go to the ballerina in Paris? Even there. Do dogs feel it? Dogs feel it. Does it go away, when when we're angry? And the invisible string never goes away. So we have these connections of love. And how are we connecting with those that we love who are not there? My greatness sticks and greatness cards that I have are all about how are we celebrating greatness. So for my own grief, the grief of my mom, my grandmother, and grief work that I do, I use these greatness sticks and greatness cards all the time. And how are we able to put these beautiful words of greatness, words of the people, what do the people do that left behind? And put them in the sand tray, and doing sand trays, ritual sand trays for those who have lost, with children as well. They can light a candle, they can do a memory, they can create a picture, and they can do images and place them in the sand tray. So as a family, we'll all sit and be able to share this experience. I had one child whose grandmother, she was unable to go see her grandmother who passed away. So she created it in the sand tray, the bed, the chocolates her grandmother gave her, and was able to say her goodbye within the sand tray, because she was unable to say the goodbye with her grandmother. So how are we meeting from where they are and being able to create these beautiful ritualistic trays of wherever they're coming from, and sit with it and take a picture with it, and just we may play music, whatever that music is that comes to mind, and that's a beautiful way to celebrate so many of the people that we love and that are no longer here with us.
Right.
There is a very deep connection with Sandtray therapy and the spiritual world, because it goes so deep into the unconscious. So those who may do Sandtray or be interested in doing it and say, oh, I'm not going to talk about loss. Loss always comes up within the Sandtray because it goes so deep.
Wow. That's great to know. It reminded Sandtray, for some reason, the work of Tibetan Buddhism with the mandala and the sand.
Yes.
You probably have seen that's beautiful, right? I used to do that. well, not with the sand, but kind of drawing them. For some reason, you see a mandala here. I'm very interested in mandalas for some reason.
Yes, well, the mandalas, exactly. Well, it's wholeness. So I have round trays, and I go outside, we do nature mandalas, and the Tibetan monks, what's so beautiful, what they do with these beautiful, I actually watch them doing it, and they do it all day. And then what they do afterwards is they sweep it all away. So it goes from this beauty of their work, and then their mind is cleared. And it's absolutely beautiful, that sweeping away, when we think of Zen gardens and the raking, it's that beauty of it's here, and then we can just sweep it away.
That's amazing. I never thought it that way. So in a way, it's just externalizing our thoughts, right? What is in the intellect and the mental level, so it doesn't get stuck in our bodies. Is that what it is in simple words, Tammi?
I think in a way, I like to think more than the externalizing of thoughts, because I think thoughts are overrated. I think words are overrated. I think it's the externalization of images. And the images begin to eventually have a feeling, and then may have a thought. But I believe that the imagery is truly goes so much deeper into the whole body experience.
Wow. So yes, right, because that would make sense. I can feel, I felt throughout my whole journey, healing journey, spiritual journey, that I was able to see things in picture, was visualizing these. And that's why I became interested in, I think you call sacred geometry. It was really important to me to connect with those symbols. It's almost as if they were calling me for something, or they were trying to say something.
Yeah, and when there is trauma, that narrative part, that left brain part, begins to shut down. You use the word, like, it's fragments. It's just fragment pieces. So when there are no words, when we can do different expressive therapies, that can help within the body for eventually for there to be those words. But to just have those words, if I was to say to you, okay, put your thoughts in the Sandtray, you'd be like, whoa, where do I even begin? But if I just say, let your fingers do the walking, whatever images speak to you, place them in, it's going to mean something completely different within your healing journey. And the journey, the Sandtrays create stories over time that create that journey of wholeness. Sand play, which is a Jungian part of sand play, Dora Koff, speaks about this, that the sand play process brings that journey of wholeness, that sacredness that is done through the different archetypes that we have, that we use within the experience.
Right. I have a question for you, a little bit outside the topic, hopefully it's not, about emotions. I have heard recently, I interviewed somebody who said emotions are an internal GPS that will let us know when we are out of alignment or out of balance, or something's out of balance. So what is your take on emotions and feelings for that sake?
Yeah, it's really interesting. When we're doing a lot of work and talking about children's bodies and our own bodies, we talk about something called interoception, which is like this, not quite sure what's happening in our bodies. And so much we try to work with kids on feelings vocabulary, which is so important in terms of feelings vocabulary. But one of my colleagues, Lisa Dion, I love this idea that she talked about when kids are coming in and they may say, I'm happy, I'm angry. And the question is, how do you know? Like, how do you know in your body that you're happy? How do you know in your body that you're nervous? And I think that this interoception and this piece in terms of our nervous system that reacts first, really before even getting those feelings online, is that we have to be so aware. And that's why this mind-body work is so important. And of course, emotions are important, but sometimes when we're teaching, in cognitive behavioral therapy, we're teaching, okay, I'm happy when I get to be with my mom. And
Yes.
I'm mad when my brother, pushes me. And it's great, right, that they can verbalize it. But let's go through a little bit more. Even when I think of kids, I can see a lot of kids with anxiety and a lot of kids with temper tantrums. And, you could be mad, right? But there's a difference from being angry, right, to mad, to rageful.
Yeah.
So it's what does happy mean? Happy can mean a million, right? Different things. There's joy, there's delight, there's, pride. There's so many different things. So it's building an emotional vocabulary, really helping for kids to understand it, matching it with what's going on their insides as well. Because just being happy, what does that mean? I'm an advanced nurtured heart approach trainer, and one of the things is this idea of love, saying I love you or I'm proud of you. What does it mean? That we have to give evidence. We have to show all the reasons why we're proud, all the reasons why we love our child. And of course, we want kids to feel love unconditionally. And when there are breaks in attachment, you can keep saying it and saying it, but the child's not going to truly believe it until it's felt. It's truly felt. So many times when there's trauma, a parent may feel that they need to keep saying it, but it may just be noise eventually for the child until it's, I love you because, and these are all the reasons why I love you, your generosity, your kindness. I love your creativity and how you're always thinking of others. There are so many beautiful recognitions that we can give to our children rather than just, oh, you're so smart, you're so great. Right? We need to fill their bucket with more to really show that we're listening and that we see them and that we hear them, so they know that internally, that it's get that whole felt sense of safety is there when we give those type of recognitions.
Wow. The more I listen to you, the more I think about this is for everyone. It's not just for children and parents. We all can apply, right? I'm just thinking here about my husband, my dog, my family, everybody. How can I just kind of apply that with them, right? And I usually do that, say why. So when it comes, why do I like this? Why I love this? So when love is felt, Tammi, where is it felt? When do we know that we are loved? What does it feel like?
It's such a good question. And I think it could be different for everybody, but I think a part of love is a sense of safety. If we feel safe in relationship, when there's trauma, there's cues of danger everywhere. We're scanning for cues of danger, and it's really hard to feel safe. But when we're in that spot, and we're in that spot of safety, and you see a child singing and playing and doing in that deep hum and in connection, and it is felt in the heart. I feel it in the heart all the time, but I think it can encompass the entire body, that all of a sudden and for many, for some, there may be never a sense of safety. But when we have these moments of, especially when I am in the play with the child, and it's just this play, this back and forth, Stephen Porges in polyvagal theory calls this games of reciprocity, your turn, my turn. When we are co-regulators, when we are back and forth and we are in relationship, when we are in relationship and we feel that and that feels safe to us, that's my definition of love, because we're in connection. And we could be in connection with one another. We can be in connection with nature. We can be in connection with the sand. We can be in connection with the books. When we have that connector, that's the important piece. It's about not being alone. And we take in whatever we can to not be stuck within that aloneness, and to be that co-regulator with all of those different pieces. So I really think that it's really hard sometimes to feel love if you're holding on and feeling in danger. But, we know in the attachment world, all you need, even if there is danger coming around, we need that one authentic relationship. And many people who may be listening to this, who may have had many different traumas and maybe ongoing traumas, there's been that one person, maybe that therapist, that teacher, that grandparent that always believed in them, that has helped to be their co-regulator and who has given them their resilience throughout their life. And they hear that voice in their head all the time. And that's what we need, that one person. If we don't have that one person, that's what makes our world so hard, being alone with it.
Wow. And wow, that's wonderful to hear. It takes one person, right? We don't have to have 5, 6, a whole social media, those large numbers of friends.
I often think of Oprah, Oprah who's been, and I think of Oprah and Gail, right? Her best friend, she's athletes, had her other people. But in general, when I think of Oprah's traumas, and she's always, that Gail is that one person for her. And so if you think back, and for people to think of, well, yeah, that one person, I'll often have in my trainings, I'll have people actually, so if you're listening to this and you have that one person, even if you haven't talked to them in a long time, send them an email, give them a call, send them a text, and just thank them and let them know that they were that person that made that difference in your life. And it's important for them to know.
That's a beautiful invitation too. Yes, yeah. And almost like a beautiful message for all of us, a reminder, right? Because we never know when this journey will end, right? It's beautiful to keep that in mind. Could that person be replaced with a pet? Is that possible, Tammi, when it comes to safety and regulation in the healthy form of attachment? Or would a person is the ideal, really?
Well, I think that when it comes to a pet, animals are wonderful. There's pet therapy. We know, again, when we started going from the beginning, when I was talking about oxytocin, that beautiful touch, right? That we have, all you need to do is go home after a hard day and pet your dog and pet your cat, and your nervous system is regulated again. Your dog is your co-regulator. So when we're talking about safety and co-regulation, and you have that piece of it, that's that piece of it. And it's beautiful. And it's beautiful that we have it. And so, I think it's hard for those who don't have animals. And when there's a loss of an animal, will often be sometimes harder than a loss of somebody who's very close to a person, because these animals crawl into your heart. They don't talk. They love you no matter what.
Right.
They don't talk back. And so the beauty and the connection of animals are unbelievably therapeutic and healing, and can act as a beautiful attachment piece of it, So I think it's important to recognize the power that our animals have. And again, it's first the touch, which is quieting the nervous system, to then for you to be able to feel that calm and to be able to feel delight and to be able to feel that joy. It's first that touch, or just that excitement of you coming home and having somebody excited to see you and to look your face and to give you that love. That may be your definition of love. If I was to ask you that definition, it could be that dog running towards you. I think it's really important that we all have a different definition of what love means to us. And that's what we follow.
Yes. Yeah. So we're almost at the end. I want to thank you again for your beautiful work and for your expression in this reality. It's just so healing and so spiritual and so helpful to all of us. So I want to mention, before we say goodbye, I want to mention your services. Gosh, besides your books, you have, you offer play therapy, Sandtray therapy, and digital play therapy, dance movement therapy, music therapy, art therapy, first play, infant, storytelling, parent coaching, supervision and consultation, keynote speeches, workshops and trainings. And then you have wellness department with the clinical herbalism and sound bowl healing, Reiki too, which is wonderful. Gosh, you have so much to offer. And you have the shop on your website, the shop page with amazing tools there too, and the YouTube channel. And your main website is mainlineplaytherapy.com.
Yeah, mainline play therapy. And I'm on Instagram. I love to do my Instagram.
Yep.
And I have Tammy's Play Therapy and Sandtray page on Facebook. And so I lots of, but I love to do parenting work. I love to do supervision. I love to train in this work. So, really I'm at a point now where I'm taking on less clients and just doing more training and being able to just spread my message. If I could introduce play therapy or Sandtray to one person and it helps them, then, these are things that we don't hear about. And people think, play therapy, we just play with the kids all day, and many, many years of training and study has gone into this work, and for people to start thinking, that to start looking outside of the box of the traditional therapies. And if the traditional therapies aren't working, get to that deeper level of healing through so many beautiful ways to be able to do that.
Right. Especially the playful way. That really was something that it resonated with me deeply when I saw your work. Oh, playful. We need more of that. And in spirituality, we have the term light. You see, light, I relate that to playfulness. Seeing the light, being in contact with the light. To me, that's play. It really is. Being able to smile more, to not take everything so seriously, or go deeper into the mind's realm without fear. That's another way.
And the one thing, I would just like to also say, about what the power of play is, that it's very much like a mindfulness practice. Like, you can't play in the future. You can't play in the past. It's in the here and now. So when there's anxiety, we worry about what had happened or what's going to happen. But when we're in the play, then it's that full sensory experience to be able to play out what we need to play out in the safety. It's the here and now. And that's another just beautiful element of it.
Yeah. So before we say goodbye, what is your idea of freedom? What is to be free, Tammi? That will be my last question to you for today.
You left me with a hard one. To be free.
Yeah.
It's a hard one. I would say a piece is to be without our own judgment, without critique. When I think of freedom and even my own constant work, it's being free of my own imposter syndrome and those pieces, and the freedom of not worrying about everybody else, and believing in my work and believing in me and what I do. And I think that's a part of just believing. I think freedom is my believing in self and being able to safely release the things, let go of the things that we need. There's a beautiful, I'll just say this one quick thing, but it's saying, and I do a play therapy intervention on it. And it's carve your blessings in the stone, and maybe write the things that you want to get rid of in the sand, right? The sands of forgiveness to let go. And I think part of freedom is letting go of the things that are weighing us down, that are too much, and being able to carve in stone of the things that are important and that we want to remember and that create resilience in us. I think that's really, the true freedom for us, or for me at least.
I love that. Yeah. Yeah. It's timeless wisdom, really, what you just shared. That's beyond wisdom, is timeless. So thank you so much for being the beautiful you, for doing what you do, and for saying yes to meeting me today. Thank you. Thank you so much, Tammi.
Thank you, and for all that you do.
We'll be in touch again. Take good care.
Okay.
Bye for now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye.